Welcome back to another Jade video. I know you've been looking forward to these videos, and recently I've kind of shifted gears a little bit and just trying to clear my head, keep good thoughts, and this project needs some attention. So if you've followed along at all in this project, you know that I've had this car quite some time. I think it's been like 7 years that I've had this car. And over that course of time, I've done a bunch of work to it. I put in floor pans, torque boxes, rebuilt all the front suspension, redid all the front sheet metal. I've rebuilt the rear end in this car. I put all new brakes on it, converted it to disc brakes, and also converted it to power steering with the Borgeson system. I have it set up, even though it is an original AC car, I do have a vintage air system to go in it. And there's a variety of things that I've done to it along the course of time. There's also a freshly rebuilt 302 in it, and of course a rebuilt C4 transmission. Now the car originally was drum brake, manual steering, but it had factory air conditioning, so that was a plus. If you've gone back and looked at the other videos, you also know that I put quarter panels on this car, a tail panel, rebuilt the trunk drop-offs, all kinds of stuff that I've done with this car. They're all on the playlist, and I suggest you go check those out after watching this video. Now, at this point, what I want to do is I want to address some things with this car. I did the extensions on the quarter panels in the previous video, talked about the fitment there. And as I was adjusting things and taking care of those little issues with the quarter panel, I realized if I am going to get this car out of this space so that I can get the Brooklyn Pony in, it needs to have some work done to it. Now part of that is getting it all in epoxy primer. Now, I want to show you some other things in just a minute, but I want to go over what I've done. I've taken a DA sander with 80 grit paper and knocked off all of the paint or EDP coating, whatever it's called, that is on the quarter panels and also on the tail panel, and I'll show you more of that in just a minute. But there's a reason I did that. One of the reasons is I want to show you some variants in the quarter panels, and I want to show you, or give you, let's say, some perspective on these materials. I've said it before, I've had other people ask questions, and I've also researched it somewhat and gotten some various responses as to what this coating really is, or whether it's worth keeping, the original coating on the aftermarket panels. One of the tests that I've been told was an easy test to tell if the coating should stay on there or not, is to take some lacquer thinner and wipe off some of the paint and see if it comes off. And I've told people this as well. Now again, this could be debatable. People are going to say, well, it doesn't matter because it'll dissolve with lacquer thinner, or if it's applied a certain way, it may not break down. I don't know. There's all kinds of variables that you could throw out there to make it an issue. So I'm going to show you the results of using lacquer thinner on some of this coating that is on these panels, and I'm going to do it to a couple different panels so that you can see what the results are. Nonetheless, I decided to take off all of the coating, and I'm going to respray this with epoxy, and I'm going to use that Summit brand epoxy primer that I used previously. The rest of the car, basically from this body line right here in the quarter panel up, has already been sprayed with epoxy. The roof was done, the top of the quarters was done, the left front fender has been done, and the left side door has been done. And I think I've shown I know I've shown videos on the fender. I may have shown some on the door, I don't recall. Now I did also have to do some work on the right side door, and I'll show you some of that in just a minute as well. But it's going to have to get a coat of epoxy primer. The only panel that doesn't need or isn't going to get epoxy is the right front fender, because the fender is really kind of worthless. It's got Bondo all over the thing. I know it's in really bad shape, and I don't plan to use that fender. So that's the only part that's probably going to stay in the original green that it came in. But anyway, let me walk around and show you some of the stuff and some of the details, and we'll go on from there. Now, as I've said, the top of the car has been sprayed with epoxy, and you can see that I've applied my Rage body filler to the pitted areas that were on the roof, and that still needs to be block sanded, and it will get, you know, block sanded at a later date. I do have some filler here where I had attached a quarter panel and topped it off where I split the seam, because this quarter, if you go back and look at the videos, I actually cut along here and saved the rail, or the drip rail, let's say, and welded the quarter to that piece. Now, once I started sanding off this material, and I know I'm going to show in a little bit with the lacquer thinner stuff, but once I started sanding this off, I realized, you know, the panel's it's in great shape. Obviously, it's a new panel, no concerns with the shape or anything like that. There was some variance in the other panels that I had for this car. If you go back and look at the videos, the quarter panels that were on this car had some crazy design here where the scoop is not correct for a 68, and I wanted the more correct looking scoops. Also in that video, I think I may have touched on it, I'm not sure, I had two different quarter panels. I believe it was this one, and then I had the one for the opposite side was actually a different shape in this area, even though it was supposed to be for 68. I ended up taking that one back and getting another panel that matches this panel. Now, one of the other things that I had to do in this process, I did weld on, I didn't show a video, but I welded on this flange because it's really tough to get a camera angle set up. But basically, when you put this quarter panel on, you have a piece that wraps around here, and that needs welded. So I did get that welded. That's done on both sides. And also at the bottom of the quarter where the flange is that meets the rocker panel, that's all been welded. So that's good to go. Now, let me show you something. As you look at this body line up here, you can see a dark shadow of paint, right? The reason for that is whenever these things are stamped, they can't do, it doesn't seem like they can do a smooth transition when they stamp these out. So I stopped sanding. You can see I went through in some places, but I did stop sanding to show you that technically that's a little bit of a dip right there. Now, for the most part, that'll go away with high build primer. You can also see it here where the flange for the rear wraps around. It makes a transition there as well. Come to the passenger side, same thing. You can see that. And again, this is very shallow, but it's enough that the DA didn't dig it out. And you can see it up here on top. Now, you see a little bit up here at the front edge as well. And I did want to point out, this quarter panel had a dent in it. It was right here. Now I did dolly out that dent, hammer and dolly, but there's still some evidence of it that'll have to be a little bit of filler, or maybe even the high build primer will take care of it. Up front here, I did find, you see that shadow basically, that would technically be like a high point with the low point around it. Not going to be an issue. It's very shallow, and it'll go away again with high build primer most likely. This door, I should have taken some pictures of it before I even started. When I was working on this car previously, I had stripped this door completely with chemical stripper, and I didn't do much with it beyond that. I left it sit, and it ended up accumulating. You can see that yellow there is not rust. That's a reflection of that door. That's from the basket case Camaro, if you remember. But anyway, that's what that is. It's not actually like a rust. Anyway, this door sat for years, I guess, technically, and it ended up getting surface rust on it. So I went over it with the DA and also with Gator grip and cleaned it all back off. There's still a repair that needs to be done down here where I'll put in a patch, pretty minor, but it needs to be addressed. But at this point, I'm not going to weld on that. I want to leave that alone because I just want to get it in epoxy. I had stripped off the bottom of this rocker panel, and you can see a little bit of surface rust showing up. So I still need to do another sanding of this rocker panel and get it cleaned up. I've done the same thing on the driver's side. It's already been stripped, so I'll have to get it more ready. Now you can see some color variation on this panel, the rocker panel, and I believe because these panels were galvanized, that may be some of that galvanized material still on there. I'm not going to take it off. I'm going to leave it the way it is. You know, I've sanded everything down. I've gone all the way down to the flange, so all this will get, you know, coated with epoxy. I've also stripped out the inside of the door jamb, so all that will get coated with epoxy as well. And I may have to take the door off to complete that step, but like I said, this door has already had epoxy on it and I've done some work to it, and that fender is good to go. So anyway, let me show you that variance that I was talking about with the lacquer thinner. All right, so I've got a clean paper towel and some lacquer thinner, right? So I'm going to put some on the paper towel, and I'm just going to wipe this flange right here because this is part of the coating that was on the quarter panel itself. Some of this has been coated with epoxy over here, but I know this is just what came on the panel. So put some on here, and I wipe this. And you can see a little bit came off, but not a lot, and it's not bare metal, you know. So this is tough stuff. Whatever was on this panel is tough stuff. All right, I want to show you this because this is important too. Same paper towel, lacquer thinner, put some on. And let me tell you, this right here, this is epoxy, because this is, when I worked on this, I cleaned all this panel off when I welded it together. So I know this is epoxy up here. You see that? Yeah. Now, not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm going to respray this, but I'm just letting you know that, you know, you can get epoxy off with lacquer thinner and a paper towel. And this stuff here, whatever this coating is, that's some pretty tough stuff. Now, I've tried this in a variety of other places and different panels, same results. The stuff that's on here is pretty tough. So, you know, the question goes back and forth. Do I need to strip this panel off, or do I need to leave it alone? Can I work with it? Whatever. And again, there's going to be people that debate on both sides of this. But I can tell you right now, this stuff, I mean, I could have left it on here. It would have stayed. It would have been fine. But I knew I wanted to do some other things, and I'm going to just go with epoxy on all this stuff just because. But maybe that'll give you some insight. Maybe it'll cause some debate. I don't know. I'm just giving you some information, and we'll go from there. Guess I'm gonna need to rebuild, especially that one. These have maybe never have been off. It's really binding. Yeah, very possible. I've never had them off, but definitely I'm gonna have to rebuild this one. Look at this. You want to get an angle here. Lots of play. Probably not gonna mess with this spring thing though. That looks high risk. I might as well just pull both doors off the car. Save myself some trouble. Kind of figured. I don't think these have been off either. I can say I've never had that issue before. I'm not going to bore you with taking the hinges off. so as I've been stripping this car down, you've seen me use different things. And I want to show you what some of those things are. One of the items I use is this Warrior polycarbide abrasive wheel. And this has like a fibrous material on it, and it starts off square. You know, this full package, it's square out of the package. But as you use it, it wears down and gets a taper or whatever. Now this is great for open spots. However, you have to be careful because this will generate a lot of heat if you stay in one spot. So you got to move around, you know, and let it cool and keep moving, and it'll take off just about anything that is on the car. Another thing I've used is one of these scary looking wire wheels. And this is another item from Harbor Freight. You know, this, I don't know if I can get this on the Amazon page. I may try, but I like these a lot. Now, again, wire wheel. So this barely fits in a 4.5 inch grinder, and it'll sling wire. So you got to make sure you have safety glasses on, gloves, even a face shield would be beneficial. So that is one of the wire wheels that I use. Then I have another one. It's a cup wheel. So it's kind of got a, you know, cup shape to it. Not very dramatic, but again, a Harbor Freight item. And this thing will really sling wires. So, you know, when I finished up earlier, I had a bunch of wires in my shirt and my pants, you know, so wear safety, you know, glasses or face shield. Also, I've used little 2-inch sanding disc, you know, basically 3M products, whatever, whoever makes these. And of course, my DA and 80 grit sandpaper to knock it down. Now, there is one more thing that I use, and I'm going to show this to you. And I think I've shown this before. This is probably my favorite go-to item whenever I have tight spaces or I need to get in around a flange. It's, you know, kind of hidden or something. This thing is by 3M, and it's called a bristle disc. Rolock bristle disc. I call it a finger wheel because it has a bunch of little plastic fingers on it, and these come in different sizes. This is a 3-inch. I've seen them in 2-inch, and I've also seen them in different colors. Now, I don't know what the rating is on the colors as to which one is tougher, you know, that sort of thing, but these are fantastic. I know they're not cheap, so I don't use these all the time. I only use them when I have to get into a space that I can't get into with just about anything else. So I'm going to put this on my 2-inch disc on my 90 grinder. Again, Harbor Freight item. And this just locks on. And I'm going to do some sanding with this and just show you how well this works. Now, since I don't want to breathe any junk, I'm wearing a respirator. So you get the idea. Now, In this case, it can't quite get in there, but I have seen if if you're willing to spin this up fast enough, it changes shape and those fingers will flare out a little bit. But if I had the 2-inch version, it would probably get in here a little easier. This is, just kind of an odd position or shape because of the switch for the light, or the dome light. But anyway, you get the idea. It does a pretty good job. And it gets into those little spaces that you really have a hard time getting into. Hope that was helpful. So I'm going to do one quick walk around to show you all the parts that have been stripped again. Both rocker panels, upper and lower sections. The A-pillar, I'm not going to mess with the toe kicks. No reason to strip that. I'm not going to strip this front edge of the A-pillar. Just that contact area where the hinges go. So all this is clean. I did most of the tail panel. I think I'll just leave this area alone and scuff it. This has already been put in epoxy, so I'll just scuff those areas in case there's any overlap. This side's all clean as well. Now this had been sprayed before with epoxy. I may strip that off, I'm not sure yet, because I'd already sprayed the jam up here, or the B-pillar, but I'm not sure. I may still clean that up a little bit. And then of course the passenger side. And I did remove the trim piece that holds the seal. Got that out of the way. And otherwise, that's where I'm at. So it's coming along, and I'm looking forward to getting it at least in epoxy. Alright, so this is going to be the end of this video. Now, I've shown a bunch of different things. I've showed removing fenders, removing door hinges, various sanding cycles and different things, time lapse and whatever. But the end goal is to have this thing ready for epoxy. Now, I don't want this video to be an hour long. I don't know how much I've filmed, but I guess we'll both know at the end of this how long this video actually is, because I don't know. I've been filming over the past few days, and I don't have a running count of how much time I have in it. But anyway, I just don't want it to be so long that I lose viewers. So that said, this video was more about prepping and removing paint and stuff like that. The next video will be actually cleaning everything up, taping off some things, and then spraying it with the epoxy. Now, I will be using the Summit brand epoxy primer, and I'll probably use that new Black Widow spray gun. I think so. And go from there. But I'm very happy with this. I've been putting off getting stuff done on this car for a while, and I needed something to give me some life, recharge my battery, and get me excited to be working on these cars again. And this has definitely helped, because I keep seeing this car, and I do a little bit here and there. There's several videos over the years that show little things that I've done, or putting the quarters on and stuff like that. But I really want to have it ready to roll out the door, even if it's just an epoxy. Have it roll out the door so that I can get the Brooklyn Pony in here and start doing prep work on the body, for getting it in high belt primer and so forth. But anyway, I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and if you haven't, I ask that you do, and hit that bell notification so you know when a new video pops up. I'm trying to put out a video at least every week. I've been doing the live streams at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, and those have been great as well. So look forward to those. Those are on Monday nights at 7 o'clock. I'll do one, and then if everything goes well, Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock for those of you in Europe. I like to get the people from all around the country on these, so it's been a lot of fun. And that's it. So once again, stay safe, wash your hands, and take care of yourselves. Might as well pull both doors off. I think it's best to take care of that little area around the highest point there for the light, the overhead light. That's what that is right there. It's for the. I think that's as far as I'm going to go on this video. There's prepping it and then spraying it with epoxy, and at least that way you can get a different perspective. You can see, spray. Nope. See ya.